The story begins with a group of scientists and soldiers sent on a dangerous mission to a strange island. Now we see a helicopter pilot who is present on that mysterious island. Suddenly, he heard a sound, a faint whisper and the sound of footsteps. Scared, he took out his gun and moved towards the sound. But suddenly, he saw a gun on the ground, but it was no ordinary gun. It looked exactly like his own gun. The same model, the same mark that was on his gun, and the same serial number too. Seeing this, he panicked. How could the same gun be in two places? But before he could even think, suddenly someone came from behind and brutally killed him. The attacker was also wearing clothes exactly like the pilot's. He picked up the pilot's bag and ran towards the helicopter and quickly took off. But as soon as the helicopter flew into the sky, it collided with an invisible wall. The truth was that this entire island was surrounded by a massive energy field, and because of this, the helicopter turned into a fireball, burning to ashes. No one can leave from here. The story goes back a little in time, and now we see a woman named Addison, an ex-military in San Francisco. She had come here to meet a man named Chase. Addison wanted to recruit him for a very dangerous mission. Addison told Chase that they knew everything about him. He was in the army before but was kicked out after a failed mission. His name was even erased from government papers, as if he never existed in this world, and that was why Addison wanted him on her team. Her company was looking for people like him who didn't exist on paper. Anyway, Chase asked what the mission was. Addison told him they had to go to a mysterious island. His only job would be to bring back the company owner's daughter, Stacy. In return, he would get crores of rupees. So much that he could live comfortably for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Chase was surprised. If all he had to do was go to an island and bring someone back, why so much money? But he didn't ask too many questions. He desperately needed the money, so he said yes. After this, Addison found her other partner, whose name was Rusk. Rusk was a sharp-minded spy and a martial arts expert, but his story was very tragic. His entire family had died in an accident, and since that day, he only took on the most dangerous missions. When Addison told him about the money and the mission, Rusk also agreed to join. Then, the next day, the entire team gathered at a private airbase. Addison now had a team of 6 people, which included Chase and Rusk. Addison started explaining the mission to everyone. She said there were 2 research centers on the island, one in the north and one in the south. They would land in the middle of the island by helicopter. Then they would be divided into 2 teams and search both places. The south team was Addison, Chase, and Dex, while the north team was Rusk and Colt, who were good with heavy weapons, and Tag, who was a genius with machines and drones. They didn't know which center Stacy was being held in. That's why both teams were going to search their respective locations. As soon as Stacy was found, everyone would return to the central point on the island near the helicopter. Then we see Tag sitting alone before the mission started, looking at a picture of his daughter. His wife was dead and his daughter had become his whole world. But now his daughter was fighting a terrible disease. Her treatment was very expensive and Tag didn't have that much money. That's why he accepted this mission. He was doing all this for his daughter. A little later, when the whole team was sitting together, during the conversation, a very strange thing came up. None of them had anyone left. No parents, no life partner, and no one waiting for them. This made everyone wonder, was this just a coincidence? Or did the company deliberately choose people who had nothing left to lose? A short while later, everyone boarded the helicopter and flew towards the mysterious island. After a 15-hour-long flight, they arrived. As soon as the helicopter touched the ground, the team split into 2 parts as per the plan. Addison, Chase, and Dex started moving south. But after walking a short distance, their steps halted because what lay before them was heart-wrenching. Several dead bodies were scattered on the ground. People had been killed as if torn apart by a wild beast. The 3 prepared their weapons and moved forward cautiously. Addison immediately took out her radio to warn the other team, but there was no response. The radio was completely dead. Dex immediately took out his diary and started writing. Whenever a place felt wrong to him, he would make a note of everything, and this island seemed more dangerous with every passing moment. Meanwhile, Rusk, Tag, and Colt were advancing through the jungle towards the north. Then Rusk noticed a rope tied to a tree. It looked very old, but the knot looked very strange to him. Rusk said, "I feel like I tied this before," but he pulled himself together, wondering how that could be, and moved on. A little later, their radio also went dead. Now the two teams could not contact each other. Back in the south, Addison's team was finding more and more bodies. No one knew how they died. Then, a little further ahead, they found an empty camp. Addison set up her portable signal booster there and tried again, but still no connection. But at that moment, Dex found something even more shocking. He took a watch from a corpse, and as soon as he looked at it, his face turned pale. The watch was exactly like the one he was wearing. The same brand, the same design, the same scratches. But how could this be? Chase said, "Maybe it's just a coincidence. Don't overthink it, bro." The corpse's face was completely disfigured, making identification nearly impossible. Maybe an animal had attacked. When both teams were searching their respective sides of the island, they had told the pilot to stay near the helicopter. But then, strange sounds started echoing in his ears from the jungle. And now we have reached the point where the story began. The person who attacked the pilot was no ordinary man. Rather, he was a mutated, changed human, transformed into a beast by some strange power on this island. After killing the pilot, this changed man tried to escape by getting into the helicopter. But as soon as the helicopter flew into the air and started going up, it collided with an invisible wall and exploded with a loud blast. This incident proved that no one could escape from this island. Meanwhile, near the camp, Tag and Dex suddenly heard a sound. When they went to check, their eyes widened in shock. A man was standing alive in front of them. He introduced himself as Dr. Young. He said he had come here with his research team just that morning. But when they arrived on the island, everything was already destroyed. His team members had been killed one by an unknown thing. Hearing this, Addison and the others were stunned. Addison said, "No other team was supposed to be here before us." But Dr. Young insisted. Then they asked him about Stacy, the girl they had come to save. Hearing Stacy's name, Dr. Young's face changed, and he asked them to follow him quietly. He led them to a solitary building in the middle of the jungle. A corpse was lying on the ground there. Its face was badly disfigured. "This girl is Stacy," meaning she was already dead. Seeing this scene, everyone was speechless. The person they had come to save had been dead for a while. Addison quietly looked at the others and asked, "Will we still get the money now?" But no one had an answer. After thinking for a bit, they decided to take Stacy's body with them so there would be some evidence. Night had fallen, and the helicopter was quite far away. So they decided to spend the night in the camp and leave in the morning. They still couldn't contact the other team to tell them the mission was over. Meanwhile, Dr. Young was feeling a little relieved. He said, "At least I'm not alone. I'll leave this place with you guys." But then another strange thing happened. Dex was writing in his diary when Dr. Young saw it and said, "I've seen this before." He opened his bag and took out a diary. It was exactly like Dex's diary. The same cover, the same marks, the same handwriting. Seeing this, everyone was shocked, but the most frightening thing came to light when they looked inside that diary. It contained events from the next day which hadn't even happened yet, and in Dex's own handwriting. At that moment, Dex felt dizzy. He said, "I just arrived here today. How can this be written?" But there was no answer to this question. This island was becoming more mysterious and terrifying by the hour. Meanwhile, on the other part of the island, we see that Rusk, Colt, and Tag had also decided to stop for the night. They lit a fire, kept their weapons close, and started to rest. Then a strange sound came from the dark jungle. The three immediately became alert and picked up their guns. Suddenly, something grabbed Tag from behind and started dragging him. Tag screamed and tried to break free, and when he turned to look, he was horrified. In front of him was a huge, terrifying monster. Then Tag understood who had torn apart the bodies they had seen. Now the monster was about to bring its claws down on Tag when, at that moment, Rusk arrived just in time and fired a shot, forcing the beast to retreat. Tag was saved, but the danger wasn't over yet. As soon as Rusk helped Tag up, Colt was left alone a few steps away. Suddenly, another monster appeared and attacked him, but this monster was even more horrifying because it looked exactly like Colt. The same face, the same clothes. Before Colt could understand anything, his doppelganger stabbed him to death. Rusk and Tag watched in stunned silence. Now questions started swirling rapidly. Where did this other version of Colt come from? Who were these monsters? And why were there duplicate versions of people, diaries, watches, and belongings on this island? One thing was clear, something very wrong was going on here. Meanwhile, Addison's team was reading Dex's other diary, the one that told of future events. It said that Stacy, who was found dead the day before, would come back to life the next day. Everyone thought this was impossible, but when morning came, Stacy was standing alive. She was breathing, talking. Seeing this, Addison and the others were astounded. They had seen her corpse with their own eyes. She was dead, but now there wasn't a single mark of injury on her body. Meanwhile, on the other corner of the island, Rusk and Tag had reached the North Camp. The place was completely empty. Belongings were scattered everywhere, but there was no sign of life. Then Rusk tried to turn on an old walkie-talkie from the camp, and this time luck was on their side because there was another walkie-talkie in Addison's camp. And finally, the two teams made contact. Rusk said, "Bro, there are some very strange people on this island. Monsters, something very terrible has happened here. And last night, one such monster attacked and killed Colt, and these monsters, whatever you call them, look exactly like us." Addison told them the shocking news from her side. She said they had found Stacy dead yesterday, but this morning she was alive again. Now both teams understood that this island was far more dangerous and bizarre than they had thought. Outside the tent, Stacy was sitting with Dex and recounting her memories. She said she had come here with her research team 3 days ago. One of their experiments had gone wrong. People started changing and attacking each other. They wanted to escape, but found out they were trapped. The truth was that no one could leave this island. Then Dex asked, "How did you survive?" Hearing this, Stacy's eyes lowered. She said softly that she hadn't survived. A monster had killed her last night. She remembered everything clearly. But in the morning, she suddenly woke up alive. She herself didn't know how this happened. Meanwhile, inside the camp, Dr. Young had quietly read Dex's diary. After reading everything, he turned to Addison and the others. His face was very serious. He said, "I understand what is happening on this island." Hearing this, everyone gathered around him. Dr. Young took a deep breath and began to speak. He said this island was full of wormholes, tears in the fabric of space-time, holes through which one could travel forward or backward in time. Because of this, time didn't flow normally here. Time here ran straight for 72 hours or 3 days. After that, everything started all over again. They were trapped in a kind of time loop. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Dr. Young explained further that every time this cycle restarted, some things from the previous cycle carried over into the next. That's why they found the extra watch, the future diary, and that rope that Rusk felt he had tied. All these things were left behind by their own previous versions. Now everyone understood that they had been here before, not just once, but every 3 days, Addison and her team would arrive on this island again, thinking it was their first time. But that wasn't the case. They were all trapped in a cycle of time. On this, Chase asked in a panicked voice, "Then where did our other versions go?" Dr. Young lowered his gaze and said that most of them were dead. "I've seen their corpses scattered all over the island. Their faces were disfigured so no one could recognize them, but they were you guys." Hearing this truth, everyone fell silent. Now Dr. Young continued, saying that not all of them died. Some were changed by the island's power. According to the diary, any human who stays on this island for more than 3 days loses their mind, body, and consciousness. This meant that the monsters they were fighting were themselves. They were their own old versions. Then Dex said in a trembling voice, "This whole island is trapped in a loop, and now we are too." Suddenly, they heard growls, screams, and the sound of footsteps. A horde of monsters was advancing towards them from the jungle, surrounding the camp. Meanwhile, Rusk and Tag were just listening to Dr. Young's words on the radio when they were also attacked by monsters. Dex's future diary was coming true. Fighting their own twisted versions was quite bizarre, but they had no other choice, so they fought back. Here, Addison's team was also attacked by monsters. For a moment, Chase froze because he couldn't bring himself to shoot a person who looked just like him. Then Addison reminded him, "That's not you, we need to survive." Finally, they aimed for the head and took down those vicious monsters. Rusk and Tag were still alive for now, but most of their bullets were finished, and they knew this was just the beginning. Meanwhile, things got even worse in the camp. Stacy, whom they thought was saved, suddenly began to change. The experiment had affected her too. Suddenly, she attacked Dex. Chase shot at her, but it was too late. Dex was killed in this attack. By the end of the day, they had been fighting for hours just to survive. Finally, Rusk contacted the company's base outside the island. He told them the helicopter was destroyed and lied that Stacy was still alive so the company would send a rescue team. But he didn't know that the company already knew everything. They knew Stacy was dead. They knew the island was trapped in a 3-day time loop, and they had sent the team deliberately to use them for their experiments. That's why they chose people who had no one left to mourn them, so no one would come looking for them. Then, an even more terrifying truth emerged at the company's secret base. In just 12 hours, the company was going to bomb the entire island to ensure this dangerous transformation never reached the outside world. Now only 5 people were left alive, and they had to find a way to escape alive before the island was destroyed. Now Rusk and Tag told Addison, Chase, and Dr. Young everything via radio. But the biggest problem now was that their helicopter was destroyed. Just as everyone was starting to lose hope, Rusk suddenly remembered something strange. Ever since arriving on the island, he had been seeing things that had never happened. He thought it was his imagination, but now he understood the truth because time was flowing backward on this island. That's why he could see memories of the future. In one of these memories, he saw a small boat hidden on the edge of the island, which was their last way out. Then, as soon as morning came, both teams started moving towards the place where Rusk had seen the boat. Addison's team was closer, so they arrived first and waited for Rusk and Tag. Dr. Young checked it and said the fuel tank was full, and if there was no storm at sea, they could reach the city. But Rusk and Tag were still far away. They were fighting monsters as they advanced. Their bullets were almost finished, and they were very tired from continuous fighting. So now they had to fight hand-to-hand with their own more powerful, changed versions. Despite fighting bravely, Tag was finally killed by his own changed version. With a heavy heart, Rusk promised that if he survived, he would find and protect Tag's daughter. But then another terrible blow came. Rusk's own changed version appeared in front of him, holding a gun. It seemed like game over, but then Chase arrived from behind and shot the mutant, saving Rusk's life. But while running, Rusk stepped on a trap, and a sharp wooden stake pierced through his stomach. Now he was so badly wounded he couldn't even move. At that moment, the 12 hours were up, and suddenly bombs started exploding all over the island. Rusk understood he wouldn't survive. He looked at Chase and said, "Save yourself, brother." Hearing this, Chase, with a heavy heart, gave Rusk his gun, said goodbye, and ran towards the boat. This was his last chance. Meanwhile, Dr. Young was watching the bombs falling all over the island. He turned to Addison and said they had to leave now. They couldn't wait for Chase anymore. But Addison refused flatly. She wasn't willing to go without Chase and Rusk. Then, helplessly, Dr. Young knocked Addison unconscious and started driving the boat alone. But then, luckily, Chase also reached the shore. He jumped with all his strength at that moment and grabbed the rope tied to the back of the boat. Just then, Addison also regained consciousness, and what she saw was terrifying. Dr. Young was starting to change. He had been on the island the longest, and as the 3 days were completed, his form began to change. His eyes were glowing, and his face had become twisted. Suddenly, he lunged at Addison to kill her. At that moment, the sound of one last gunshot echoed. It was none other than Rusk. With his last breaths from the burning island, he fired that last shot and saved Addison's life, and the next moment he was killed in the explosion. Now only Chase and Addison were left in that boat. They were alive but surrounded by fire and destruction. They didn't know if they would survive. They passed the place where the helicopter was destroyed. But perhaps due to the blasts on the island, the wormholes were disturbed, and for a few moments, a safe path opened, through which Chase and Addison escaped safely from the island. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.